Hi everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Conversations and Collaborations with Nadi Majidi. So the first episode for this series is going to be all about mental health, and it's going to be about mental health in particular within the Afghan community. So I'm so excited to introduce you to my first guest of this channel. So my first guest of this channel is someone who is very active in the mental health field, and I'll let her introduce herself properly. But I'd like to welcome Sara to the episode. Hello, Sara.
Hello, Nadia John. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show today. I'm really happy to be here. I'm very honoured. And thank you so much.
It's absolutely lovely to have you here. So I think if we just start with us introducing ourselves. So obviously your listeners don't know who I am and my listeners don't know who you are. So let's start with introductions. So we give a little bit more background to who we are and then let's go from there. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. So in terms of myself, I am a pharmacist by profession, but I'm also someone that I would say has had a lot of experience personally with mental health. So I feel like as a result, it's made me really interested in the topic. And that's why I really wanted to talk about it. So let's say to my listeners who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself?
So as you all know, my name is Sara and my background is in psychology and mental health, and I've done my master's and my bachelor's in psychology and clinical neuroscience. I'm a published author and a founder of Empowered Mind Org. So I've been working within mental health for many years as a manager for services, and at the moment I work in a neuroplace, helping people with strokes, MS and etc.
Okay, that's a very impressive intro. I think how I like to always start it is just talking about our intentions. So my intention for this episode would be just to raise awareness about mental health, in particular in the Afghan community. And I think my intentions generally is to normalize talking about these topics and to make them less of a taboo. So what would your intentions for this conversation be?
I think you said everything I was going to say. Yes, I would say the same. I would say making it easier for people to ask for help and standing up for mental health and making awareness, especially within the Afghan community, because as I've seen, it's very hard and very less.
I think let's start from the beginning. Let's start basic. When I say mental health, what does that actually mean?
To me, mental health means someone themselves, myself, how I feel, how I think, how I behave, and seeing other people, I would say the same for them as well, how they think, how they feel, and how they behave.
Okay. So let's say, because I think the thing that I've noticed a lot is we talk about these things. So let's say, for example, depression, anxiety, PTSD. We talk about these conditions, but I feel like there's a lack of awareness of what it actually means, or, for example, how it manifests in someone's day to day. So if we break down some of the top mental health conditions, what would you say are the most common, and what does that actually look like?
I would say the most common mental health, Afghanistan especially, is depression, anxiety, PTSD, and these are the main ones. We do have other ones like within learning disabilities like autism and stuff, but I would say depression especially. And depression is not actually something where we're like, okay, this person's not eating, drinking, they're like falling asleep, or they don't like life, or they don't like doing anything. But it's more like how they feel and what they're doing. And it's not, we don't have to think about, I'm not doing this. It's about what they're doing in that moment. So within the Afghan community, I would say mental health, like you said, is a taboo. And we're always taught to survive and not to talk loud and not to like speak up about how we feel. And mental health is a very big topic, and right now when we're talking about mental health, there's a lot coming to my mind, but at the same time I'm thinking, okay, I need to explain it in a way for the Afghan community to understand, and the people around us who know us as Afghans, they should know that in Afghanistan mental health means nothing. And over the years, I've been trying to raise awareness around mental health because I feel that people in Afghanistan are not educated in a way for them to understand what mental health actually means. For them, mental health means crazy. In like Farsi we say diwana, and they think mental health is something that we have a weak iman, and it actually doesn't mean that. In Islam, like, we are actually told to look after ourselves and look after our health and, like, you know, our mind and everything. And it doesn't specifically say mental health, but the stuff it says, it clearly states that we need to look after ourselves. And right now, there are many people in Afghanistan that are actually not educated within the mental health sector. And raising awareness on what we're doing right now is great. So, yeah.
And, you know, it's actually really interesting. You said something along the lines of, in Afghanistan, mental health is known as like crazy, right? So when I started my whole like social media and YouTube journey, one of the first things I did was like upload a video. I don't know if you saw it, but I uploaded the video of me crying, right? And the aim of me uploading that video was to sort of normalize talking about emotions and like normalize, like, we cry, like it's a very normal human reaction, right? And I remember the response I got was, oh my God, everyone's going to think you're crazy. And I'm like, how sad it is. We associate crying with crazy, or like you said, like diwana in Farsi. And it just shows how little we know about it. Let's go back to, let's say you were talking to someone in Afghanistan. Where would you even start? That's like the first question. Like, as you said, there's like a lack of education, there's a lack of information when it comes to mental health. So how do we even start to bridge that gap?
Over the years, I've been invited to Afghanistan Open University, many other places like in Afghanistan, where they wanted me to give a talk about mental health and why it's important. And I think I've done more than enough of what is mental health. And it's always, what is mental health? How can we help ourselves? Why we need to speak up? Why is it good that we need to speak up? Why do we need to be educated about mental health? So it's always been around this part. And I feel like we're still stuck there. Afghanistan is still in that place and we have not moved.
Let me just interrupt there. Why do you think we haven't moved?
I think we haven't moved because Afghanistan, the education system in Afghanistan, the health system in Afghanistan has, like, it just hasn't moved where people can actually, like, you know, get better or learn more about it. Even within the education system, we've never had something called mental health. We've never had like services helping people with mental health or even with stress, like something as well in the mental health sector, like stress is something like the littlest that people can have, and they've never had help for that.
But you know what it is? Devil's advocate, right? We say Afghanistan, but I don't think the UK is much further in their advancement. Because I agree in terms, disclaimer. Obviously, I feel like we have a lot more availability, a lot more information available to people who want to seek help. But I think the same thing applies. Like, unless you're studying psychology, in your day-to-day school or like education system, high school, primary school, even university, unless you're in that field, we don't talk about it. So I feel like the same thing does apply. I think it's a general international taboo topic, and there's a lot being done at the moment where we're trying to change it. But at the same time, I just don't think it's going anywhere near as fast or as far as it should be. But I feel like we have normalized talking about it within ourselves, within communities, within workplaces. There's like wellness, well-being support that you can always go to. So there's definitely a lot more in place in the UK, but I would still say that it's not really where it should be.
I absolutely agree with you, because even here we do have like systems like, you know, there's many charities, Mind and all of that, and there's like numbers that we can call up for help, like Samaritans and everything. But at the same time, we don't have the system where they can actually help in the way they should, even though we mostly have everything here, but the system is not in place properly. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
No, yeah. I get it. Yeah.
And in Afghanistan, like, as you said, we don't have anything there. We don't have any systems. We don't have like proper hospitals. We don't have services. We don't have supported accommodations. We don't have mental health hospitals. We don't have like services that people can just call up and get help. And we only have around 300 and something psychologists in Afghanistan, which is really sad because in the UK we only have, I think it's 60,000 something, which is a big difference, and it's very sad. And this is why I've started Empowered Mind, and I'm trying to help people online, doing monthly webinars. And our first webinar is actually going to start on the 28th of December, and we're just trying to like raise awareness, help people, especially women, because I feel like in Afghanistan it's very hard for them to speak up and to talk about their feelings. And not only women, men as well, like everyone in Afghanistan, they've been through a lot, and all the war, everything that they've been through, families that don't let women like do anything like work, education, and it's all something that builds up and becomes something like mental health. So in Afghanistan we have a lot of our population like struggling with mental health.
And I guess this brings me very nicely onto, let's talk about your book.
Okay.
So I've actually got a copy here, Silent Scars of Our Land. Let's start with, so as a published author, where did the idea come from? I guess it makes a lot of sense in terms of your background and your work, but maybe go into it. Like, what was the aim of the book? What is it about?
I was, over the years, since I was very little, I always thought about psychology, and I've been like told by my parents a lot about like the psychology in Afghanistan that it's nothing. And because in my family we always like, we had this very specific Afghan culture, and we've always like, you know, spoken about Afghanistan, learned about Afghanistan, our traditions, the culture and everything. And I had a lot of connections like in Afghanistan within like families and stuff, like doctors and everything, that I always knew that there was something missing within the psychology sector. And as I was studying and everything, I always thought, okay, why are there so many people with mental health, you know, working on the streets, like especially little children? I've always watched TV shows and seen these children working, and it was really sad because I thought if they were here, they would have actually got a lot of help. But because they're in Afghanistan, they work for like what, 20 Afghani, 10 Afghani? And it was really hard for me to like see all this. And then I searched about a lot of charities that help in Afghanistan, and like for the mental health, you know, everything like awareness and stuff. And I got in contact with many places, and they always told me, but it's not the help we want. It's not the, you know, we don't receive anything like information or ongoing help that we need. And I always thought, okay, how am I going to raise this awareness? And I love reading books and I love writing. So I don't know, but I just thought I should write and raise awareness through my words. I had someone asking me last week, so are you making good money from your book?
It's always about the money.
Yeah. I was like, to be honest, when I first planned to write the book, I didn't think about the money, because my point from this book is raising awareness. This is mental health. I don't want to make money out of it. I want people to know Afghanistan better, and I want people to understand that the mental health system needs a difference. And now. So I was even telling that person who asked me, maybe in my next book I'll make money. You know, I'll promote better and stuff. But now, no. I just want to raise awareness, help my people, and try to make a difference through Empowered Mind.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely are. So obviously I've read the book, and I think in the book what stands out to me is the actual stories you talk about. Like, there's stories about actual people you've spoken to and their particular struggles as well. Maybe go into that a little bit.
Chapter 10, I have The Truth. It's called The Truth, and it's real life stories of people in Afghanistan. So at the time when I was writing my book, I put up a post on Instagram and I said, like, whoever wants to join and tell me, you know, everything about their mental health or the difference they had in Afghanistan, and if they live in, like, you know, outside of Afghanistan, they can tell me the difference then as well. And I had a lot of people coming through saying, yes, we want to. And there was a few people that I got in contact myself with, Oriana Said, Afghan singer, the charity that I used to volunteer for and help with people with thalassemia. They done a little report as well. And yeah, so I had people coming through telling me all these stories, so I told them to like write it down, and I actually did not edit anything from their stories because I thought what's real is real, and we have to keep it as that. I thought that keeping real stories in my book would make the book more stand out, and that people will actually think about there are people out there, there are Afghans out there with mental health, and that it's very important, and how different stories can be.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think hearing or like reading real stories just makes it so much more real.
Yes.
Like, and especially if, let's say, you've gone through something similar, it makes it more relatable. But I think at the same time, it also can just open up your vision, or, you know, there's a range of different things. Like, we all don't experience life in the exact same way. We all have different experiences of life. Different things affect us to different amounts, and that's okay. And I think just reading someone else's story just helps you be more empathetic and just be more understanding of everyone's struggle is so much more different.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we briefly spoke about the book and we spoke about mental health generally. I kind of want to go back to culture. We spoke about culture briefly. I want to go into culture a little bit more. So would you say, because obviously from what you mentioned earlier when you were doing the book, you spoke to people in Afghanistan and you spoke to people outside of Afghanistan. Would you say there's a difference in terms of mental health, how we as Afghans understand it being in Afghanistan or being an Afghan outside of Afghanistan? What would you say the main difference is?
I think the difference is how they're taught, like education-wise, and how we're taught here. Like I said the other day, there is a psychologist in Afghanistan, and they say some stuff that I don't believe in and I don't like trust. And sometimes watching their videos, I take notes down because I feel like I need to make awareness and tell people that some of the stuff they say is wrong, and we need more people to talk about mental health, because when I actually listened to those videos, I was like, hell no, this is so wrong. Clearly they were saying if someone is quite big, that they should feel that they need to kill themselves, and you know, it was a bit weird, and I was just like, okay, but you can't actually say stuff like this to people. Or there was a video of him saying, if you have low iman, it means that your mental health will be bad. No, it doesn't. Iman is our faith in Allah, and like, we're all Muslims and we need to have a strong faith. Mental health is something different. It's us and how we feel and how we behave and think. So I don't understand where iman and mental health like come together. Well, it does come together, but in a way for him to say if you have a low iman, your mental health will be bad. No, because there's people that will be praying like 5 times a day, they'll be very Islamic, but their mental health might be very down.
So you know what? Let me tell you about my own personal experience. So obviously, you know that my father's passed away, right? So let's say when he first passed away, it was like, I would say, the start of my mental health journey. And I think for so long, it goes back to like the lack of awareness. I don't want to talk about grief too much because I want to do that as a separate episode, but like very briefly. So I think that was the start of my mental health journey, but it also took me so long to even identify that it was the start of my mental health journey, because I just didn't know what it was. And especially for someone who's like been brought up in the UK, I even with my education, I couldn't connect the dots. And a lot of the time, the feedback that I would get is, you disagree with what Allah has decided, so that's why you're depressed. And it was like, or like, it goes back to like a lot. I used to get, you have very weak iman. You have very weak iman, which is why you're not accepting that it was your father's time to pass, which is why you're upset. And it's like the two things can coexist. I can have full iman and I can know it was his time to go, but at this exact same time, I can still be upset or I can still be depressed and it can still affect me. So I think it literally it goes on from what you said. I feel like so often we just make everything very black and white, and it just doesn't work like that. Like, in the real world, these things can coexist parallel to each other. Like, I can have full iman and I can understand, but at the same time, that doesn't invalidate my feelings, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you, because Iman is something we have faith in Allah, and mental health is basically our health and our mind. And yes, we need to obey Allah, and we need to do everything, He says. But it does not mean if we have a low Iman, our mental health is bad because of it. And like you said, your father passed away, Khadawan Bakhtish, and it's not your fault. That was his time. His time in this world was that much. And Allah has said that it's in His hands when we come and when we go. So this is wrong what they said to you.
And I think the other thing is, it goes back to like religiously, some people just make it very black and white. You're depressed, just go pray.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you can pray and still be depressed. It's like what you sort of said earlier.
Yeah.
You can pray and you can still be depressed.
Yeah.
So I feel like we need to actually encourage people to seek professional help rather than just constantly brushing it off. I feel like we have a tendency, I would say both in like the Muslim community and in the Afghan community, we have a tendency of like brushing these things under the carpet. Like, if you don't talk about it, it's not real. If you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. And I think that's the complete opposite. The sooner we talk about these things, the sooner we can deal with it, and the sooner we can like get past that stage or learn better coping mechanisms rather than just pretending it's not a thing.
Yeah. You know how you said people say if your mental health's bad, you need to go pray. I feel like, yes, in a way, that's a really good thing to feel good in that moment. And, falling in front of our God will be the best thing for us. But it doesn't mean everyone is the same. It doesn't mean it will work for everyone in that moment. It may work after some time. Of course, if we feel low, sad, depressed or something, we do listen to the Quran. I always do this. I listen to the Quran. It makes me feel good. There are people who say, no, but it's because you're not praying. People who have mental health, as in like they have schizophrenia, and they will pray. So, for example, if someone has schizophrenia and before they had, all this, they were praying everything, and then all these symptoms came, and they're not feeling good, and then they stop praying for like a year or so, and then there's times they'll be praying every single day. It doesn't mean that this person has low iman. It doesn't mean that this person does not want to be close to God. They're just unwell. And like I said, that psychologists, when they said that you have a low iman, which means your mental health will be bad, no, it doesn't, because there's people like having schizophrenia, sometimes they're not themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think that we need to understand that religion and iman is always a journey. Like, you're never always going to be 100%. You're never always going to be perfect. But as long as we as Muslims, we strive to do the best we can, and we have pure intentions and we try and work on our iman, like, that's the main thing. And I feel like, they say, I don't want to, but like paraphrase, it's like Allah is to his believer as they see him. Paraphrase. I don't know if I've said that correctly, but it's like, let's say if you are someone who believes that Allah is very merciful, forgiving, then that is how Allah will respond to you, right? And I think so often people try and like fearmonger you in religion, or they just try and like constantly, you do this is haram, you do this is haram, Allah's going to punish you, Allah's going to do this. And it's like, yes, I understand it's important to have knowledge about these things, but I also feel like intention and good character play a very big role. And also, I believe that Allah is forgiving. Like, so I can sometimes maybe not be completely perfect, but it just goes back to we all have different relationships with our creator, and we all see religion differently. We should just accept that. Like, that is, at the end of the day, it's a very personal journey. My journey is going to look different to your journey is going to look different to somebody else's journey, and I can't change you and you can't change my journey. But as long as we have the awareness that we're not really doing anything that is like haram, I think everything else is a journey. That's how I see it anyway.
I think you're right. And also that it's between that person and their God.
I agree.
Because there's people that interfere in people's business of what they're doing, what they're wearing, or why they're not doing this. And I just feel like, who am I to speak about that person? Who am I to judge that person? Because judging is a part of the group that we're not supposed to be doing something like that. I feel like there are people who think they're a very good Muslim, and but they say stuff about other people, which is not nice. Because if you want them to be a good Muslim, then why are you talking behind their back? Firstly, you should be talking to them, you know, telling them straight up, okay, sister or brother, you know, you're supposed to be doing this, or this is wrong, or something like that. But I actually had a message just today from someone on Instagram, and they said to me, I posted a few posts of Ariana Said, and it was about the school for Afghanistan, for the girls in Afghanistan.
So for context, who is Ariana Said?
Oh, Ariana Said is an Afghan singer, very famous Afghan singer. And this person said to me, which I respect their view because everyone has their own view, and they said to me that she's basically a singer and she doesn't wear appropriate clothing, and that she's this and that, and she's not educated, and that relationship with her partner is not halal and it's haram, that she's not done nikah before. And to be honest, I respect everyone's view. I would never say you're wrong. I would say my view, but I would never say you're wrong, because that's their view, and I can never change anyone. Like you said, we can never, like, you know, change anyone. And all I said to them was, yes, but I respect her work that she does for the girls in Afghanistan, and she's always stood up for women, which is really good. Her clothing and her character and everything, if she dances or something, I think that's because she's a singer, and that's nothing to do with me. That's between her and her God. And her education, I think she has studied in London, in the UK, and that's none of my business again. But again, I did tell them that she has studied. Her relationship with her partner, yes, she has done her nikah, and I've seen videos that people talk about it, and she's done her nikah, and I believe it. And there's friends of families that know them and their families that have actually told me. And I feel like why I'm saying this right now is because it's nothing to do with me, and it's nothing to do with anyone. It's between them and their God. And that person's going to be watching this video saying why I said this. But at the same time, I feel like I respect their view and what they messaged me. But at the same time, I feel it's nothing to do with me. It's nothing to do with them. It's between that singer and her God. And what she's doing, she will respond to God one day. And yes, and people tend to go talk about other people, say stuff about them.
No, I completely agree. You know, they say this thing, Allahu Alam, right? Allah knows best.
Yeah.
And I think so often we just get involved in other people's lives, or we have too many opinions. And to be honest, if we spent that time having opinions on somebody else's life, just focusing it on bettering yourself, we'd be in a much better place. I mean, not commenting on, I don't want to say too much, but I agree. I think that it can coexist. You can still appreciate the work she does. And I agree. I haven't always been a huge fan, but I can still appreciate the work she does. I can still appreciate that she has done a lot for Afghan women or Afghan girls. And I think the recent 5,000 girls that can get an American certified education is a very big deal for the girls and the women who are currently out of education. And it gives them a way, because, you know, we all know that there are underground schools operating at the moment, and they are still trying to do their part to be educated. But regardless of how much they try, you still don't get the end qualification, which is a lot of what education is about. It's about that end certificate, end qualification, so you can move on to the next bit. So I think her managing to create this platform where they can actually now get the qualification at the end is still a very big deal. And I feel like we need to let these things coexist. She can still be a singer, and maybe Islamically people don't agree with her work. That's fine. But we can still accept that she has made a lot of progress for Afghan women through this program.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. Yeah.
Earlier, you sort of mentioned schizophrenia when we were talking about religion and praying. Have you ever had a patient that has schizophrenia? And if so, what has been your understanding of how that manifests in their day-to-day and Maybe
Yeah.
just talk about your experience with any clients, etc.
Sure. Yes, I've had many patients in the past, and I've worked with them that they had schizophrenia. I mean, to be honest, it's very hard for us to work with them because it's very sad and very overwhelming. But at the same time, when I think about it, I'm like, how overwhelming it's for them because they're actually fighting voices, they're fighting what they're seeing, and that we're not hearing or seeing. So schizophrenia is one of the, like, I would say one of the worst that I've worked with because it's very hard. They're very delusional. They a lot of hallucinations, and can you imagine me and you are speaking here, but then there's like 2-3 other voices in my head speaking to me, or objects around me speaking to me. I think it's something that I could never be in their shoe. I could never, like, I can't even think about it. Talking about it actually makes me very emotional because I've worked closely with many, many people. There were times that we had a very hard time in the service. There were times that we had to, like, you know, call the police or the ambulance. And it was very hard for us as staff and them as a patient, seeing them like that. And also, a lot of them that I've worked with, they had the thought that one of us don't like them. And it was really sad because everyone that I've worked with, I love them. Of course, like, because I know they had a life outside of this before, and it was something like, I love and respect you, and I respected what you did before, and what you're doing now. They try to help themselves, but they can't. They don't have much options now. There's not much ways for them to get help with schizophrenia, because what I've been told, and working with seniors, they've always told me that there's nothing for them to get help. They're going to stay like this. You know, it can be controlled, but they won't be healed.
I think anyone that works in the mental health field is someone that is generally an empath and they genuinely care about their patients. Like, I think anyone in the healthcare field, broadly speaking, they care about their patients. Like, you're not, let's be honest, working in the healthcare field, it's not like the most high paying job. So you have to enjoy what you do to be in the field. So I just really wanted to like double down on that for a minute. I think going back to schizophrenia and Afghan community, there is a lot of misconceptions and there is a lot of misinformation. And I think so often schizophrenia is associated with jinns. And we just sort of like label anyone that has schizophrenia as they've got jinns in them. Let's talk about that.
With schizophrenia, as you said, I have mentioned it in my book, that a lot of people mislead schizophrenia to jinns, which is not right, because I feel the only reason why it happens in Afghanistan is because the health system is not that great. And when people feel like this, they take them, you know, to the mullah, to the imam, and they say, oh, read the Quran on them or something. But it's, I won't blame them, because that's how they've been taught. That's what they need to do, and they need to go to the mullah, which is a good thing, which is okay. But because we're in the 21st century now, and because there are more resources out there online, just, it's not in Afghanistan. But at the same time, we do have well-educated psychologists in Afghanistan that can and that have made videos and spoken about it before. And in my book, I did mention that the imam is not the only way for your cure or your healing or your controlling that you want in your life. You need to be seen by a professional, a psychologist, a doctor. It has been misled to jinns and stuff just because, like I said before, schizophrenia, there's different types of patients with schizophrenia. So there are a lot of them that have hallucinations, delusions, and because of, like, you know, all that, they think it's jinns. I actually worked with someone else closely that their family actually took them to the mullah, and the mullah said directly to them, and this was in London, that this is not something an imam can help you with. This is something psychologically that a doctor needs to, like, help them, because it's in their mind, it's them. And when they told me, I said, yes, it's definitely that. When you feel something within yourself, you need to go to the doctor, not an imam. Because there are imams out there that will read the Quran on you, which is really good, was lovely. And but But at the same time, I think first doctor, a professional needs to see you. Because of the education system in Afghanistan, there has been a lot of misunderstanding of jinns and schizophrenia, jinns and mental health. And it's really, really terrifying for some, because there are families out there thinking their child or their family member has, you know, a jinn. But it's not a jinn. It's most of the time, it's just mental health. Yeah.
From my very minimal understanding of jinns and my minimal understanding of schizophrenia, I think the way I would sort of differentiate it is an internal voice versus an external voice. That's how I would sort of see it. And I could be wrong, but like the way I sort of see it is like, I feel like apparently with jinns, you're supposed to feel them take over, right? But then okay, let's just not talk about this because I actually don't know.
I think schizophrenia is same. It's very, very similar.
I think following on from your point, people have different ways of dealing with things, right? And I think I'm not even against if someone has schizophrenia to take them to the mullah, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's important to exhaust all your options. And if that works, then that works. But I also think it's important to not use that as your only source. Like, we are supposed to use multiple options. We're supposed to use multiple resources. So having an imam, I don't think there's ever anything wrong with going down the religious route, but I think using the religious route as the one and the only option is not a good option. I feel like you can do the two things at the same time. You can go and speak to someone professional and you can go to an imam. I think it's important to do both rather than just saying, well, I've done this and this didn't work, so I'm now not going to do anything. Like, we have options, we have routes, and I think it's important to exhaust all of them. Very briefly, just because, you know, I think with mental health, it's so difficult because there's so much to talk about, and like in an hour, it's so limited to try and get it all in. But I think especially Afghanistan, and a thing that is very common is PTSD. So what is PTSD?
Well, PTSD is trauma. It's what people have been through, maybe since childhood, maybe a trauma that really, really hurt them that it will never be forgotten, a trauma that has been stuck in their mind and body, something that has been very, very hard for them to stop thinking about. And PTSD has been a lifetime. For some, it has healed, but in Afghanistan, it has been passed on generation to generation. So in Afghanistan, when I say in my book, I have said PTSD is like one of the biggest, you know, problems, because there's lack of education, there's lack of information there about PTSD. I was actually searching about it, PTSD in Afghanistan, or how is PTSD seen in Afghanistan? And not much was coming up. Not much research papers were coming up, maybe around like, 5, 6? Just the other day I was speaking to someone in Afghanistan and I was like, are there a lot of books about psychology in Afghanistan? Are there a lot of authors in Afghanistan that are like psychologists? The answer was yes. But like I said before, their information, like some of their information and some of the information we have here, very different. Sometimes I feel like PTSD for them may mean something else, but for us something else. There was a news report about autism once. A doctor in Afghanistan have said you can operate someone who has autism to cure them. And I was like, wait, what? This is so wrong. This, I can't, you know, the moment I saw it, I was like, I am not going to let people think like this. So I got in contact with the news people and I was like, this is very wrong. And I don't want people in Afghanistan to think like that. So they told me to write a report and send it back to them. And I did. It was really sad because I could have just left it there. I could have just left people thinking that if their child has autism, they can get cured by operation. But no, you can't. Autism does not have a cure specifically with, operation or something. No.
I think this is a lot of mental health. Like, a lot of mental health does not have a cure. You just need to
control
or find ways to make sure that you can manage it. It's just important to know that a lot of these don't have a cure. And a lot of these is just managing how it manifests and affects your day to day, and just learning signs, maybe learning triggers to try and minimize the effect it has day to day.
I was actually, sorry.
Go on.
I was actually thinking, like when I started writing my book then, I always think about education, like mental health education being in Afghanistan should be in schools, like primary schools. That's where it should start. Because I feel like little ones can change the family. Little ones can change their parents. Because I know like a lot of parents in Afghanistan, a lot of families, they're very close-minded, as in like within the education system, within the health system. They don't believe in some of the stuff. Like, for example, there's people who have nut allergies, but when you say it to someone in Afghanistan, they don't believe it because there's nothing like that in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is, but a lot of people have nut allergies here. That's where it needs to start, with children in Afghanistan, in schools.
Yeah. I think circling back to PTSD, obviously, like as a pharmacist, we do what we can in terms of like pharmacologically. So I have a lot of experience with people who have PTSD, but like, let's say, for example, are veterans. And I think it just shows you the impact of 40 years of war in Afghanistan. Like, for the situation that they're still in, we don't even know the long-term effect that this is going to have on the children, the adults of Afghanistan. And I think experiencing or talking to, for example, veterans who have been in that situation for a few years of their life, and you know, they're back out of it, they're back in the UK, back to like their day to day, and the effect of PTSD is still affecting them day to day, you know. And I think it's quite a scary reality to admit that we don't even know the long-term effect of war to the people of our country.
I think war has always been there, and war is something that has caused PTSD for the people of Afghanistan. And even for us, our parents came here because of war. Our parents came here because of the change in our society, or the change in our government, because they wanted a better future for us. And it's sad because not many get this. And alhamdulillah, like, we're very happy, and I feel like I'm very lucky to be here and have an education, because if I lived in Afghanistan, it would have meant that my education would have stopped, 4 years ago?
You know, I think the last point that you just mentioned about how we're so lucky to be here, I completely agree. I never want to take that for granted. But I also think it comes with a lot of its own stress, and it comes with a lot of its own responsibility, I would say. Like, they refer to this, I can't remember who it was, but there was a song at some point, like this rap about survivor's guilt. I can't remember who did it, but and it's like, so often we carry the responsibility of being perfect just because we're in a different situation. So, you know, earlier when I spoke to you about that video that I had posted about me crying, etc., right? So I had a lot of my family in Afghanistan reach out, right? Like, some of them I'm really close to. And they said something along the lines of, what do you have to be depressed about? Like, literally, what is wrong in your life for you to be depressed? You're in a country that is safe. You have an education. You have a job. You have a house. You have a family. What could there possibly be for you to be depressed about? And I remember in that moment going, wow, we really have no understanding of depression. Like, I think so often it's almost like you need a reason. You need a reason for feeling the way you feel. And depression doesn't really work like that all the time. So many people I know are depressed and they can't even identify the reason why they are depressed, you know? And I think that in addition to dealing with depression, that brings an extra sort of like guilt. It's almost like I then felt guilty for expressing that I was depressed, because then it meant that I was ungrateful for my current life, which I'm not. But it goes back to what I said earlier, these things can coexist. I can be very grateful for the life that I live, but I can be very accepting of the feelings that I have.
Can I just say something?
Yeah, go on.
You know, with depression or stress or whatever, there's always a base. Because I believe in, and I think that we can say, someone can say, for example, I have financial problems, I have family problems, I have this, I have that. But there's always a problem, which is the base that has actually occurred, all these other ones to come on top of each other and add on and add on and add on. Until we don't cure that base, these ones at the top will never be cured.
100%.
These ones will just keep adding on and on. So in Afghanistan, we have generational trauma, which adds on, for example, from a mother to a daughter, from that daughter to, their child or whatever, and war. Every government that has been going on, there's war. There's what? Displacement, war. There's lack of education. Like, even the roads in Afghanistan, even the buildings in Afghanistan, they haven't changed. It changes and then, poof, it's gone. Do you know what I mean? It's just, there's no change, no proper change. We need a change in Afghanistan. We need a proper change, like, as in, like, education and health-wise, a lot of change.
Yeah, but I think it's also important to accept that maybe you don't always know what the root is. Like, it's what you said earlier.
Yeah.
Like, there's always a base.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. And I think the base makes you more vulnerable to new things affecting you more than they would have done if that base wasn't there. That's how I see it. And I think sometimes I think the truth is it takes a lot of effort to work out what that base is. And that's probably why it's quite difficult for some people to know why they are depressed, because you can see this, like what you said earlier, you can see these other factors that are playing a part, and then sometimes we blame that. So let's say you had financial stress, and then you can see that the impact of financial stress is causing you to struggle more with your mental health, but that's not actually your base, because when that resolves, you still are struggling. And I think getting to the root cause is so hard. So let's say if I wanted to get to the root cause of what is causing my depression, where do I start?
There are a lot of, like, healing places that you can actually go to. Therapy. Therapy is really good. And unfortunately, a lot of our Afghans don't believe in therapy.
Yeah.
I believe in therapy. I trust therapy because I've seen people get better with therapy. I've seen people change with therapy. And going therapy, joining, like, conversation groups, because all of this brings you out, brings what's in you, and finally the root cause will be out soon.
Yeah.
Because with therapy, you're speaking from your heart. You want to speak out everything. And of course it's going to be confidential, and you will be safe. So of course, go therapy, and you need that base to be gone.
I completely agree. I think that's something that I have spent a lot of time on as well, like literally trying to understand the root cause and going to therapy. And the impact of therapy that it's had on my life is phenomenal. So if it's one thing that you take away from this podcast, it would be, if you do struggle with your mental health, therapy.
Yes.
Definitely. And even if it doesn't work for you, at least try it.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to a really nice end to this conversation. Obviously, we know that mental health is such a broad topic and it's going to be impossible to talk about it all in an hour. But what is the one last message you want to leave people with regarding mental health, especially in the Afghan or in the Muslim community?
The last message I would give would be, get help. Go to professionals. Don't seek help with anyone online because it's not safe, and see a professional and go quicker. Don't leave it hanging, because the more you leave it, the more the base keeps going down. So go for help, ask for help, and once you receive the help, you can help others around you. So yeah, go therapy.
I completely agree. I would literally like to echo the exact same thing. I think my message would also be, let's talk about it more. I know it's becoming less of a taboo, but I think in our communities it's still a taboo. So let's just normalize talking about it. Yeah. And similarly, you said, don't listen to everyone online. I completely agree. Like, misinformation, especially on like social media like TikTok and Instagram, there is so much of it. So just be careful who you're listening to. Make sure they are actually professionals. Because obviously you can get lots of like snippets and bite-sized information from professionals on social media. So just be aware of who you are listening to. Yeah. And yeah, I completely agree. Let's just talk about it more awareness. And if you do struggle, then just be open and honest. Open and honest and seek help. Yeah. So obviously, thank you so much for joining us today. But just before we go, let's say if someone wanted to grab your book, where can they get it from?
It's on Amazon. It's on Waterstones. It's a lot of everywhere online. So yeah, just search for the name and it will come up.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So if anyone hasn't read it, I definitely would recommend. So all you have to do is literally, as Sara Jan said, just search up Silent Scars of Our Land. So thank you so much for joining us today. I have really enjoyed our conversation and I can't wait to have you back.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.